What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Riverfront Bengals Show. I'm your host, Nate Dotson, and with me this week, while Joe is living the life of Riley down at Disneyland, is someone likely familiar to anyone tuning into this show. You'll know him from the Riverfront's Reds coverage, and I know him from the confluence of events that led to us being brothers. Chad Dotson is here with us today. Chad, how the heck are you?
Could not be happier to be here. I'm doing very well. I'm excited to talk about Mike Brown and ownership, and because that's all I'm allowed to do is rant about Cincinnati ownership. So let's rock and roll.
There will definitely be some opportunities for rants today. First off, it's pretty dope hat you're wearing. What's going on there?
If you're not watching on the YouTubes, you can't see this lovely orange FC Cincinnati cap. FC Cincinnati, this is we're going to talk about the Bengals here, but hey, congratulations, FC Cincinnati qualifying for the playoffs for the first time. It's very exciting. And, yeah, excited to see what happens for them. Just unbelievable what. Again, we're not going to get into them, but I'm just blown away by what they've done in basically one off season. Just really transforming that entire organization. Really bright future. So terribly exciting.
That was cool. I like, it's the only time on this podcast we're going to talk about a team's successes. So get that out of the way early. No, I'm just kidding. There's plenty to be excited about. But
I think so.
Yeah. Well, before we get started, I want to take just a second to ask you wonderful people to please go to wherever you listen to us, wherever you get your podcasts, and hit that follow or subscribe button. It's those likes and follows, subscribes, and reviews that allow us to keep bringing this thing to you week after week. And if you don't mind, take a second, help us out. I would greatly appreciate it. So, Chad, let's just get right into the weeds here. As you may have heard, the Bengals lost on Sunday Night Football to the dumb Baltimore Ravens, 19-17. If you weren't watching at the time, it basically boiled down to Burrow scoring on a keeper with a tick under 2 minutes remaining to go up 17-16, which left plenty of time for Lamar Jackson and those dumb Ravens to go downfield, which they did, on the leg of, let's be honest, probably the best kicker ever to do it. Justin Tucker hits the game winner as time expires and sends us all to bed with a frown. We're a few days removed here. How are you feeling now, Chad?
Well, it was a bad loss, and the fact that the Bengals have all lost all their games on the last second field goals on those last drives. Does that maybe make it a little bit easier to take? I don't know. Maybe if you're looking for reasons to be more optimistic, they're in these games. They're close to being able to convert. I am concerned about some things that people Bengals fans have been concerned about ever since Zach Taylor arrived on the scene. We will get to that, the play calling. But I look overall. They're 2-3. Yeah, being 0-2 in the division is not great, but they're 2-3. Got a 5-game stretch here coming up. They can really do some damage. I'm not ready to get. People are always asking, "Are you worried? Should we panic yet?" And the answer is no. I think now, if you want to be concerned, I think there are plenty of reasons to be concerned. We'll talk about those, but I also think that this team is still fundamentally a very good team, and a couple of tweaks I think could be, right back to the team that we saw through the playoffs last year. So yeah, let's be interested, but not panic. I think is the way I would put it. Is any of that fair?
I think that's pretty reasonable. My panic meter has gone down slightly every day removed from that loss. It was pretty high when that game ended, and I think it's just like you said, it's those losses by walk-off field goals. It's those kind of hurt a little bit worse. I actually predicted the Ravens were going to win this game. Got some flack for it from some of our listeners, understandably so. But the fact is that this was an incredibly winnable game, and they all have been. But we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty details here in a little bit. But I'd like to start with the defense, if that's okay with you, because I just feel like there's a lot more to dive into on the offensive side, and I want to give a little bit of credit where credit's due. And it starts with just when you hold a good football team, a good offense on prime time to 19 points at their home, that should be enough to get the job done. And I think it was pretty obvious that was the case this time. 19 points, even without the game-winning field goal. The Bengals had every chance to win that game. It's a sputtering offense that kind of prevented that.
Yeah, I agree in principle, I guess, that should absolutely be enough. And the defense, there's a lot to be happy about here and there. But I guess I'll ask you, I'll turn it around and ask this. Again, should we be concerned? But the defense has a lot of bend but not break. I know you guys have said in the past, but should we be concerned that when it really counted in each of their 3 losses on that final drive, they permitted a drive down the field to give up the game? That's probably unfair, but when we really need them, they bend a little too much, I guess. But again, that's sort of picking nits here, because you're right. I think the performance by the defense, especially that big interception early, that really sort of changed the direction of the game. I don't. You can't pin any of this on the defense, I guess is what I'll say. Although I wish they had slowed them down on that final drive.
Yeah, I spent some time thinking about this, and maybe I'm not the the analytical mind to figure out what the answers are there. For a guy like Lamar Jackson, I'm not going to get mad at anybody. The guy is so dynamic; he can beat you in so many ways that a defense is tired in the fourth quarter. The Ravens were running the ball down their throat. That wears on you throughout a game. So having a hard time stopping him then, I'm not going to get too upset about it. But you're right. Bend but don't break has been the theme of the season for this defense, and they definitely bent a lot against Baltimore, and they've done it 3 times at the end of the game, which really hurt them. But they did hold Baltimore to 1 touchdown, 4 field goals on the evening. That's pretty solid. Lamar Jackson was largely ineffective. He only had 174 yards through the air. One thing that's inarguably true was that the defense really, really missed the presence of DJ Reader. We didn't see it too much in that Dolphins game because the Dolphins don't have a strong rushing offense. But it was evident here, and of course it was. Some of the names you don't really expect to be mentioned here also kind of graded out poorly. Sam Hubbard, Trey Henderson, and Logan Wilson in particular, just didn't do much when it comes to stopping the run, and it allowed Baltimore to get those 5.5 yards per carry success that extended drives and ultimately put themselves in that position to kick the game-winning field goal. But I don't know if you want to rant on that any further. That's all I'm going to say negatively about the defense. Your point is valid, but they held that team at home on prime time to 19 points. They did enough to win the game.
Yes, no, and let me just sort of follow up by conceding the point, which is that, yeah, they did plenty. Frustration on that final drive aside, the fact of the matter is, the way it started out, after the first 4 possessions, I was starting to get a little bit concerned that it was going to be a blowout, because when Von Bell, I think it was on the 5th possession, 4th or 5th possession, Von Bell intercepted the ball, the Lamar Jackson pass at the Cincinnati 17. If the Bengals have scored there, potentially you're up 3 scores early, and then it becomes a lot different game. So that interception sort of, and then the defense really kind of playing away from that point is the only thing that gave the Bengals a chance to even have a chance to win a game on the road against a division foe. So I'm with you.
Yeah, after those first couple drives, I was sweating it. I was doing one of those sneaky, watching it on my phone when I'm supposed to be, spending time with my better half and having some quality time on the sofa. So what are you doing? So don't worry about it. It's important. This is work. But I was getting pretty worried there early. Thankfully, the ship got righted a little bit, and that goes with the offense kind of getting some things on track, at least for a little while. But let's just jump into it. 17 points is not enough. It's not going to get it done, particularly against a bad pass defense like Baltimore. They're literally last in the NFL in yards per game allowed. I mean, we're going to get into some Joe Burrow stuff later, but if there was going to be a team where I thought that the passing offense was going to break out, it was going to be this game. Sure, qualifier. T. Higgins did not play or went out late in the first. They're going to miss him. That's obvious. But something's got to get better with this offense, and especially Joe Burrow in the pass attack.
Well, there's no question. And there's plenty of speculation about what's the problem with Joe Burrow, and we can get into some of that, obviously. And I don't think it's all to be pinned on him. But the fact of the matter is, Burrow has to be better than he has been. He has to be more accurate than he has been. I think some of this, we're going to do a deep dive probably into the play calling. I think some of this can also be, attributed to the play calling. I mean, where's Tyler Boyd? Why aren't they targeting Tyler Boyd at all? I mean, his targets are down substantially, and especially in a game like this Sundays where T. Higgins is not available after the very beginning of the game. Some of that is increased usage of Jamar Chase, obviously, but still, I mean, Tyler Boyd is to me one of the most underrated players um, in the league in some ways. He's really good. Now they don't outside that top three, they don't have a whole lot of depth, but which is something I was concerned about coming into the season. But I don't understand why they're not targeting him more. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not smart enough to know what the answer is about Burrow, but I think the ultimate answer is I think he knows it, but he has to be better. If for this team to be what we all think they can be, Burrow has to be the guy. And I don't know. I'm seeing some signs, but also some discouraging things as well.
Yeah, sure. And I'm glad you brought that up about Tyler Boyd. I was going to touch on that earlier. They're taking away the deep ball, the big play, which carried Cincinnati so far last year. We know that. But Burrow has cooked in that intermediate era, that sort of 12 to 16 yard range, 12 to 20 even. He has been so good and so accurate there, not just his pro career, but in college, I'm sure high school too. That's where Tyler Boyd should be making a living. He should be catching the ball in stride, going downhill there 3, 4, 5 times a game, and it hasn't been there at all. So we'll definitely be monitoring that a little bit. But let's go back to a little bit of positive. The run game. Man, we've been upset about the run game all season long, and it looked better than it has in any of those games. Joe Mixon, 14 rushes for 78 yards. That's 5.6 yards per carry when he was averaging 2.7 coming in. And the fact that after a slow start, they finally appeared to have turned the corner on the ground really makes some of those choices, some of those those plays they called, even more frustrating because we've been waiting for that. We've been waiting for that all season long for the run game to have any sort of effectiveness.
Well, and I want to break down the fateful drive, the fateful play calling on the one drive in a moment, but absolutely. And again, if you'd have told me that we'd have Joe Mixon being, good Joe Mixon, that you'd actually utilize him and get production, and what do you have, 5.5 yards a carry, something like that. Yeah. I mean, that's you think you add that in, and okay, now the offense will start humming, and of course it didn't. But again, if you're looking for encouraging signs, maybe that's one. Finally, they're going to utilize the run game and hopefully never the Philly special again, but utilize the run game and get Burrow back on track. I don't know. I'm looking for reasons for hope, and that's certainly an encouraging sign out of Mixon.
Well, if we've been talking about it as much as we have, then it's been a point of focus in practice and in the war room. So hopefully they have turned that corner and figured something out because they're going to need it. We got a nice stretch coming up, but they put themselves into a little bit of a hole here. And as I mentioned, T. Higgins goes out the first, did not return. It's not looking good that he's going to play this week in New Orleans. I don't know if they've had an official word yet. I haven't seen anything as we are recording this, but it's something that we're going to have to monitor. Hopefully he just needs a little bit of time to rest it because if he's out, it changes the entire flow of this offense. So get well soon, T.
Yeah, I haven't seen the latest, injury report on him. He did say after the game that he thought he'd be back for the rest of the games, but he's certainly limited in practice and still, as far as I know, still listed as questionable for this week. And they have to have T. Higgins. They just have to have him. I mean, again, I mentioned the depth in the wide receiver core, and I don't think it's enough for a legit team. But when you have everyone healthy, they're fantastic. So I guess I'll say, maybe they're looking to utilize Hayden Hurst more, and he looked really good this weekend. Touchdown catch, 6 catches for 53 yards. And the more I watch that guy, the more I'm become a huge fan of Hayden Hurst. So I don't know. There's some options
you're right
there.
Yeah, Hurst had that touchdown. You gotta love his energy and the spark that he brings. And it was a bit of a revenge game for Hayden. He spent some years under Mark Andrews over there in Baltimore. But without T. Higgins, the defense is keying on Jamar Chase so much. The gravity that he has in the offense, it's pulling defenders towards him. And if you've got somebody like T. Higgins, which is essentially another number one, it really limits how much they're able to do that. Defenses can try to sell out, double team Jamar Chase and put your best corner on T. Higgins the way that Miami did, and look what happened. He's going to burn him. He's going to win that matchup most of the time. So yeah, we're just hoping gets well soon because that team needs him in a big way. We mentioned Hayden Hurst again, but like, it's awesome. I'm very, very happy for Hayden Hurst. I'm a Hayden Hurst fan. But if you're somewhat above average tight end as leading your team in receiving yards and almost leading the team in receptions, that's probably not great. Not when you still have Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd on your roster.
Yeah, and absolutely, absolutely, 100%. And just to kind of circle back a little bit, I guess I understand what Cincinnati's trying to do with Jamar Chase. You do want to obviously move him around, get him as involved as possible. Maybe more difficult certainly with T. Higgins out, but offensive coordinator Brian Callahan said this week, that's part of the reason why Tyler Boyd hasn't been targeted as much. They're moving Jamar into the slot more than they ordinarily would, and those are the targets that would be potentially Tyler Boyd's. But they've got to figure it out. They have to figure it out. I mean, Jamar Chase is talented. T. Higgins is obviously what T. Higgins is, but they have to figure it out because lack of health is a thing that happens in the NFL season. You have to be prepared. And I don't know that they figured out the right mix just yet. But again, that gets back to the play call discussion that we're going to have.
Yeah, I will. Just one quick thing. I shared something from the Riverfront Bengals show Twitter account today that somebody posted on Reddit. I wish I could give credit where it was due, but it laid out the routes run this season or as game by game, from Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and then Jamar Chase. I think most people would have agreed those are the three, if not three, of the top 4 or 5 receivers in the NFL going into this season. And the creativity and the difficulty factor in routes run for those other guys and the way they're getting involved in the offense versus what they've been calling for Jamar Chase was striking. So if anybody, go look at it's all over Twitter today. It was a big thing making the rounds. If anybody wants to get on the Googles, take a look at that. And if you were already wondering if it just seemed like Jamar Chase hadn't been running the right kind of routes, getting to the right places, it's going to solidify that belief if you see it. But Chad, we've got to do it, man. I didn't want to do this. I've been holding off on this for 4 weeks of this show, but we got to have the discussion, and I got to ask the question: what's wrong with Joe Burrow?
I don't have an answer.
Do you think there's anything wrong? Is there nothing? It's just timing. It's an appendectomy. What are you seeing out there?
I tell you, I don't know. I wish I had an answer, because this is the single question. In addition to questions about Zach Taylor, this is the question. I don't see anything. Physically, he's making some decisions he didn't make last year. Ball's getting batted down. I wish I had a better analysis here, and maybe Joe would have if he were here. But I just. You want to say that it is due to the shortened training camp and coming back from the surgery, and that's he's just a little bit behind. But we're 5 weeks in now, and at some point, Joe Burrow has to be Joe Burrow. I said it earlier, but this team can't be the team that everyone expected that they would be without him. It's just they can't. Ken Anderson's not walking through that door. So, or Boomer Esiason. We kind of need Joe Burrow to be Joe Burrow. And instead I don't know. You don't give up on someone. You don't despair too much, I don't think. I mean, this is as talented a football player as I've ever seen wearing the orange and black, but I'm searching for answers. Sounds like, the Bengals are searching for answers, and Burrow is searching for answers. They need to find those answers sooner rather than later. Do you have what are your thoughts?
Well, you said one thing that I think is important. He looks fine. I mean, he still looks like Joe Burrow out there. He's moving like Joe Burrow. He's got the Joe Burrow swag. That's never left him. Thank goodness. I think that's going to be important. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to run through some stats. The passing game has struggled to move the football consistently once again. That too high is obviously a problem. Tampa 2 that we've been talking about all off season. Burrow's EPA, it's expected points added per dropback, is 0.160 against single high defenses. When they're in those too high looks, that number drops to negative 0.184. That's really bad. He's also averaging the fewest air yards per attempt in his career. And then he had a post-game quote that I get, but I found a little disconcerting. And it's not something that you love to hear from your quarterback. He said something along the lines of, and I'm going to paraphrase a bit, there's just not going to be anything available over the top if that's how we're being defended. I mean, in a vacuum, that's true. That is the point of that defense, is to drop two safeties back and take away the deep ball. And we know teams are game planning against the Bengals in this way, but it's not really something new. Patrick Mahomes has been seeing it all season too. That's when it first came out, when it first got popular. It was the Patrick Mahomes defense. Well, he's on pace for nearly 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Good teams figure this stuff out. But we know Cincinnati is aware of it. We know teams are trying to do it. And it seems like they have just made zero progress against it.
Yeah, I'm right. Well, that's a real concern. I'm generally a guy that says, the players have to execute. You can't pin everything on coaching, and certainly in the baseball context, I say that all the time because everyone wants to blame David Bell for everything wrong with the Reds, and David Bell may not be the best manager, but the players have to execute. In football, it's a little different, and we're talking about American football here, not that dirty European kind. Here there are real questions about why. I think that some of this may be Burrow's fault. Obviously, clearly he's not been as crisp necessarily, but what you just said. Why is it taking so long for the coaching staff to identify this and do something different, game plan it differently to try to address the fact that the over the top's not there. I have real questions about this coaching staff, and I know that they have there's a honeymoon period and a long leash because of what happened last year. But you can pin at least 2, maybe all 3 of these losses on play calling and coaching decisions. So I think it's fair to question whether or not it's not all Burrow. It's just that other teams have adjusted to Burrow and what he can bring to the game, and the Bengals haven't readjusted after last season.
Yeah, and you can definitely point to the fact that the running game was so ineffective the first 4 weeks. If the running game's not working, then those safeties are happy to drop back there because you're not getting any yardage underneath. You're not getting any yardage on first down. So they're good. But when it is working, that's when those plays kind of open up. It makes sense. If you're getting 3.5 to 4.5 yards a pop, especially early, you can't just sit back and allow those easy plays from 8 to 15 yards. And, let's be honest, like Burrow's stat line wasn't aggressively bad or anything. He was 24 for 35 for 217, a touchdown. And he did have that one brutal pick. And more than anything else that Joe Burrow did in that game, that pick was the one that got me. He said post-game that he just didn't see his former LSU teammate, Patrick Queen. And I watched that replay so many times to try to figure out. Granted, I don't have 300-pound dudes chasing me down and like literally trying to find the happy medium between ripping my head off and not getting a roughing the passer call. But he had a clean pocket and Queen wasn't hiding anywhere. I mean, it was an absolutely just terrible, horrendous throw that led to 3 points. And those 3 points ended up mattering quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it was a mistake that you don't usually see Burrow make. He's going to make mistakes, but it was out of character. It was I agree. It looked pretty egregious just from and again, it's easy for us to say that from the sofa. But I go back to what you just said, with the running game like it was, and the offensive line, which was terrifying early in the season, fairly cromulent, acceptable,
Okay.
and even good at times. Yeah. And so those things are working. You think, oh, well, okay, we're about to get this thing in gear. And it could be a situation where they are that close to getting things in gear. Just, again, make some technical adjustments, but I'm not seeing any sense of urgency or a sense from the coaching staff that they have an understanding of how to fix this thing in their public quotes. I'm not in the film room with them, obviously. So, and I don't want to be in the film room with them because, I can't watch that game again. It was too frustrating. I don't want to replay it.
Yeah, it's 100% correct. We talk about those intermediate throws, and those were huge for Joe Burrow last year. Last year he had, actually I have the stat pulled up, hang tight. He had a 72% completion percentage and 13 yards per attempt on those in between throws. This year, it's down to a 58 completion percentage and 10 yards per attempt. That is a huge, huge drop off. And you brought up Tyler Boyd. He needs to be getting utilized right there. We had talked about T. Higgins being hurt, and that's going to alter your game plan. But, man, you have to see, and it's obvious watching the game, the coaching staff has to plan around those yardage. If you're getting anything done in the run and they're taking away the deep ball, that space is wide open. There's only 11 guys on the team. If they're putting 2 people on Jamar Chase already, you got 9 other guys you have to beat. You got a third of the field that they're trying to let you do that with. And I don't know. What they're doing is they're just dumping the ball off over and over and over again. In the last game, 14 of 35 of Joe Burrow's passing attempts were at or behind the line of scrimmage. Like, if you extend that to just within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage, it's over half of Joe Burrow's pass attempts are going 4 yards less. It's like they're either looking for something 20-plus yards downfield, and if it's not there, they check down to somebody at the line, and they've completely abandoned that middle area where Joe Burrow thrives. I don't get it. It's play calling, so let's get right into it.
Well, let me that's interesting because it's something I'd noticed and been frustrated about, but hadn't really put it into context that so they were dumping it off so much. And they tried to get Tyler Boyd to criticize Burrow a little bit on his reads and on who he's checking down. And he was like, no, if whoever he sees, we're trusting him. And that's a fair response and a good teammate response as well. But maybe there's something there. All right, I'm sorry. I've been hinting at it this whole time, and I really want to go play by play basically through the at least the last 4 plays of that drive, because I think this is a microcosm of why so many people are frustrated with Zach Taylor. Let me say, though, before we begin, I'm still very optimistic about this team. I sound like I'm complaining a little bit. I don't want to come across that way. No, I'm excited to watch this team the rest of the season. This part frustrates me. And this one, it's 13-10. It's late in the third quarter, and the Bengals are first and goal from the 2-yard line. Okay, so down by 3. This is the reason they lost, and I think it's fair to pin it on the play calling. They just, the whole drive was 15 plays, 73 yards, took 8 minutes off the clock, converted 3 third down conversions, drew a couple of pass interference penalties that were big. And then they were right there on the 2-yard line. And on a night when the run game was not bad and a night where things looked like they were getting going. And what do we see? Well, on first down, I don't have a problem with it. First and goal from the 2. It was incomplete, but they targeted Hayden Hurst. And
just a quick little out right there in the end zone. I'm going to be cool with that play 10 times out of 10. He claimed that he got held, and he may have as a – I think if you're just a casual observer that it wasn't a fan of either team, you wouldn't want them calling that penalty every time it happened in a game. But totally fine play call.
Yeah, perfectly fine. So this has been the Riverfront. Zach Taylor's a great play caller. We're going to stop there, or do you want to keep going?
All right. Thank you for watching.
Oh, my goodness. Second down. Oh, man. The Philly special.
Jesus Christ.
For a 12-yard loss. Oh, my goodness. Essentially, Tyler Boyd, the Philly special, which I can't stand. I know teams have been running it, but.
Yeah. Can we rename it? The Philly special isn't very special anymore. Call it the Philly typical or the Philly unoriginal.
Right. Yeah, it's not special at all. So Tyler Boyd will take the ball from Jamar Chase on an end around, and the Ravens were just all over it. I don't know what to say. It was just so frustrating. Lose 12, so then you're third and 14. Third and goal from the 14. What is the thinking there? You're second and goal from the 2. Why? What's the upside to that? I don't understand the thinking that goes into that. And maybe I'm not a galaxy brain thinker like Taylor and Callahan, but I cannot figure out Who thought that was a great idea?
I've been trying to figure that out all week. I think maybe he was listening to this podcast and every other podcast. Maybe they have a Twitter pro that just tells Zach Taylor, what people are tweeting about him constantly. And all I heard was, "Oh, I need to be more creative." That's not what we meant, Zach.
No.
We don't need you running the annexation of Puerto Rico. This was it. I didn't get it. Like you said, puts him into that rough third down position, which leads to, they got a big chunk of that back, so it's now 4th and 2.
Right.
What happened next?
Let me just say, yeah, and what happened next is every time I see one of these crazy play calls, I think to myself every time, this is extremely simplistic, but you've known me over the years. I'm simplistic in every way. I'm like, a 12-year-old playing Madden wouldn't have called that play. 2nd and goal from the 2, got a chance to take the lead. You're not going to call the Philly special. So, but you're right. Third down, Burrow to chase for 12 yards, and so we get 4th down. Now, here's my first question for you, Nate. It's 4th and 2 at the Baltimore 2, 4th and goal. You're down 3. What do you do if you're the coach? Do you kick the field goal there, or do you go for it? Let's start with that decision.
So now, I'm probably going to kick the ball, but let me talk through this. Feel free to quote me here. Call me a hypocrite when I bitch and moan about it in the future. I'm going to make some claims. I am never, ever going to complain when the coaching staff decides to send out Evan McPherson, Money Mac, the heir apparent to that kicker on the other sideline, for those almost guaranteed 3 points. I'm not going to complain. The defense has been solid as hell, and those 3 extra points in our 3 extra losses would have them 3 losses would have them undefeated right now. But football is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be entertaining. It is entertainment, first and foremost. So I'm also never going to complain when a team wants to go for it on 4th down from the goal line or close to it. I think almost everybody on the offense wants to go for it, every player. Mm-hmm. And if I'm just watching a game, I enjoy watching that game more when they go for it. But that said, if you're going to go for it, there's only one rule I have for you. Don't call a stupid play.
Exactly. More of that in a moment. That's a pretty good rule, by the way. I'm like you. I'm on team go for it on 4th down everywhere on the field. I'm for that always. What was interesting to me is I saw some of the discussion later. The analytics actually agree with the decision to go for it. And of course, here the Bengals did go for it slightly. If you look at the win percentage in that situation, down 3, 4th and 2, 2 yards from the opponent's end zone. 3rd quarter, just under 3 minutes left. Both teams have 3 timeouts. If you run the numbers on it, the win percentage on going forward is 44%. It's 41% kicking the field goal. So roughly equal, but you could either decision is defensible, I guess is what I would say. Mm-hmm. If you don't decide to throw a shovel pass to Stanley Morgan. A shovel pass? 2 plays after the not that the shovel pass is not appropriate ever, but 2 plays after this disastrous Philly special, you're getting kind of silly again. And shovel pass incomplete. The Bengals don't score, and they needed at least 3 points, as you said, from that drive. What kind of a play call is this on 4th down?
Twitter said he needed to be more creative. So he was.
Twitter knows all.
A shovel pass on 4th and 2 to some guy I'd never heard of. I just don't get it. Don't get cute there. The run game is working for the first time all season. And sure, it's it's working against a light box. It's not a light box in the goal line. I get that. But it is working a little bit. They have to honor it. So then of all times is when you let Joe Mixon go to work, at least one of the plays. He didn't even touch the dang ball. That QB sneak they did a drive later, where was that? Just go get somebody going downhill and have people behind him pushing him. I'm not Zach Taylor's biggest fan. but I'm also not calling for his butt to be on the hot seat. You take a young team to the Super Bowl, you're allowed more than 5 weeks of grace. But Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, and everyone else involved in this offense need to do some serious soul searching, because between some slow starts, a flaccid passing game, and 4 weeks of zero rush attack, and then those dumbfounding play calls, with the whole country watching, there are some shortcomings that are awfully difficult to ignore. And
Yeah,
I'm done ranting.
And those shortcomings landed his feet. I mean, it's just a fact. Yeah, you mentioned it. Now I was going to compare and contrast to the drive later in the game where 13
Please do.
plays, goal to go situation, down by 6 with just over 2 minutes left, right? And this time, goal to go, none of the cutesy nonsense. It's that downhill, smack him in the face. Joe Mixon nearly got in. On the first run, and then quarterback sneak for the touchdown on second down. I mean, there's a reason why since Don Amici and that's a blast from the past for you. Way back in the day, you want to shove it across the line because sometimes that's the right answer, not getting creative like Twitter wants them to. Yeah, to me, Zach Taylor and I've been hearing complaints about Taylor almost since day one from people that follow the Bengals more closely than is actually healthy, friends of mine. And sort of the wrap on him, I think it's fair to say now, is you can probably say Monday to Saturday, there are reasons to believe he's a good coach. Now, some of the slow starts and the fact they weren't exactly ready when the bell rang at the beginning of the season, weren't prepared, maybe you lay that on him. But I think there are things he does that gets this team, got him to the Super Bowl. He did something, but it's kind of like I used to say again. I hesitate to bring up the Reds again, but what we used to say about Dusty Baker, which is Dusty Baker, man, is a great manager. I'm fully believe that he's a manager, but when the lights come on at game time, the dude doesn't know what he's doing. And it's just a fact. And that's why he hadn't had success in the playoffs, because his in-game decision-making is so poor. With Zach Taylor, though, it's way more magnified. The game day play calling is much more important than a baseball manager's decisions. And, it's lots of people can take some share of the blame here, but Zach Taylor gets a big portion of it. And he needs to do some soul searching, and they really need to figure out what they're going to do going forward. Does that mean he needs to give up play calling? I know a lot of people are saying that. I don't know. I don't know if they'll be in any better shape because everyone sounds like they're on the same page. I don't know, but something has to give. That's my little rant.
Yeah, I don't buy the whole he needs to give up play calling thing. First off, Callahan's never called plays himself. So just to magically think that's going to be a drastic improvement. It's my understanding that they have a very, very similar offensive philosophy. So the play calling is going to be similar. If you think Callahan, who has his job because, Zach Taylor hires him as a coordinator, wants to just go in and completely undermine the head coach and start calling wildly different plays, I can imagine that the list is very long of coaches giving up play calling duties after 5 weeks, and that going super well. And there's a couple, recent examples. Sirianni in Philadelphia did it. And that's what everybody's going to point to. But a lot of people have tried it, and it's worked poorly almost every time. You don't make that call unless you think it's going to produce drastically improved results, and it's impossible to know that in this exact situation. So I don't know. We're going to see. It seems like Zach Taylor made progress as a head coach every year, but I haven't seen any progress after this year. You'd think a long playoff run and an improved offensive line with the weapons that he has would lead to the biggest leap yet. And I haven't seen it so far, and I hope we do.
Yeah, so far I think is the key there, because it still could be there. There's still a lot of season left in front of us. But you're right. I'm going to do something that I typically do, and everyone can make fun of me. That's fine. But I'm going to talk about the University of Virginia Cavaliers because that's what I do. But I'm just be careful what you wish for, because last year Virginia had a chance to beat their big rivals, the stupid Hokies, and the play call. They're on the goal line with a chance to take the lead on the last drive of the game, maybe the last offensive play of the game, and on fourth down, Virginia calls a play to throw it to an offensive lineman. Literally, they threw it to an offensive lineman who caught the ball and was tackled immediately because he weighed 400 pounds. And so the offensive, what I'm getting to is the offensive coordinator was summarily sent packing after the season. Bob and I went to Syracuse, and they're doing well now. But what's happened since is most of that great, and Virginia had a great offense last year. And I'm sorry for inflicting this on people, but they had an incredible, one of the best offenses and a great quarterback. This year they can't score, and so they made changes that did not help. So I don't know. I'm not ready to say that he needs to give up play calling because I don't know that it's going to be better. What I'm trying to say, be careful what you wish for, but something has to give.
Yeah, I love that. It's actually a perfect analogy. I'll excuse you making the first University of Virginia reference on the Riverfront Bengals show, as far as I'm aware.
And the last, I promise.
And because you brought up an offensive lineman, got to be fair. The line has been better after those first 2 weeks. I'm not going to claim it's been good, but better. And I've mentioned every episode that I'll stop bringing up the O-line when they give me a chance to. And today I'm going to take that chance. Burrow was only sacked 3 times again. Jonah Williams was a soldier playing hurt out there. He was looking pretty hobbled his last couple of days in the locker room, from my understanding. So really hoping that he is able to bounce back quickly. I'll be surprised if he plays this week against the Saints. Alex Kappa, legit elite. He was elite in the pass block, just like Jonah Williams. Even Lyle Collins graded out at a 65 in the pass block, which for him is pretty much Hall of Fame worthy at this point.
Why isn't he better? I was told he was going to be better.
I don't know. I saw that 65 grade, and I was like, oh, wow, because he didn't pass the eye test. I wasn't watching the what do they call it, the All-22, where you get the view from the coach's box. But just from watching it on TV, there were just horrible plays. There were times it looked like he was playing in quicksand. I mean, guys were past him before he had even taken his first step. Not to mention, well, let's definitely mention that stupid shovel pass when he blocked the entirely wrong human being. It's
and that was interesting to see Taylor chasing him down the sidelines and having a spirited discussion. But it was a terrible play call, yes. But again, that comes back to players have to execute. He was blocking the wrong guy. I mean, how do you miss assignments like that in the National Football League? I'm frustrated with him, and I was promised better when he arrived.
At this point, I'll settle for bad. He can just be
right.
adequately bad. I'm not going to get mad about it, but all right. I think that's about enough of the negativity around here. Sorry, guys. We brought some of that to you. I don't know if you deserve it. You've been feeling it and hearing it all week. But there are things to be excited about.
Yes.
Quick hits real quick. First off, Dax Hill, rookie first rounder. He played. He got 6 snaps against the Ravens, a season high, all on passing plays. He also got 10 more on special teams where he earned an elite 91.4 grade. So
nice.
Do whatever you want with that information, I guess. Other than that, that was the 10th consecutive loss for Cincinnati on Sunday Night Football. So if they can stop scheduling those games, yes, that would be awesome. I don't know if they have any more scheduled. If they don't have any more scheduled this season, that's a positive. So there you go. Let's move on to the standings and schedule watch. Bengals are 2-3. Puts them in a tie with Cleveland for second in the division, though the Browns do have that tiebreaker for now. They're still right in the thick of things, thankfully. The slow start and tough losses have not buried them, not even close. And if they can win this next game, the 5 after that are against the Falcons, Browns, Panthers, Steelers, and Titans. Those are all very, very winnable matchups. The sins of the first 5 weeks will be entirely forgiven if this team is 8-3 after that stretch. And they might need to be 8-3 because the schedule watch gets pretty bleak after that. The second half of the schedule, they're playing the Super Bowl runner-up schedule. NFL structures it that way, so you guys play harder the further you go. But they have a chance to be 8-3 and in really, really good position. Last year they had a slow start, and we know how things went. So plenty of reason for optimism there.
Yeah, a couple things. Looks like there's a couple of Monday night games, but as of now, no other Sunday night games are on the schedule. I think you're right. I think the Saints. I think this game this week at New Orleans, it's a big one. I think they need to get back to even on the ledger in this game, and then come home and have a chance really to, like you said, to to go on a run. The last game of that run, it's Falcons, Browns, Panthers, Steelers, Titans. That last game at Tennessee, I don't know. That may be a little tougher one, but it's certainly not that closing stretch. What I do like about the schedule, even though it's tougher, and again, the Bills are one of the teams, but I just love that last 2 games are at home. So, I expect it's seeding and playoff opportunities are all going to be in the mix, hopefully still by that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I hope the Bengals run off and win every game the rest of the way, and it's a foregone conclusion. But I like the idea that we can, fill up Paycor, and the Bengals can kind of have destiny in their hands. So I think the schedule does get tough late, but there's also, again, I'm just looking for reasons to be optimistic. There's no reason they can't be 8-3. What if they're 7-4? Then, which is maybe more likely, then they have to do some work against the Chiefs and the Bills and some of these teams. But
they do. But I don't think anybody's going to be too upset about it. We're Bengals fans first and foremost. So, let's be honest. How many times in the last 10, 15 years would you have been upset? Be like, hey, team's going to be 7-4 after 11 weeks. Not very often.
Right.
They'll have some work to do. And if you want some more reason for optimism, week 17 they're against Buffalo. Another primetime matchup, but Buffalo might not have anything to play for at that point. They could have their seeding locked up. So if you want to root for something outside of just Cincinnati, keep an eye on that Buffalo schedule. If they have, if they've got that number 1 seed locked up by week 17, they might rest some guys in the second half, and that'd be okay with me.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. So I guess the ultimate point, though, is just let's take a deep breath here. It's not good to be 2-3, especially the way they've lost those 3 games. But there's plenty of room still in the season to do what they do need to get the ship righted in a hurry. But when I say get the ship righted, it's not like they're being blown out. It's not like they haven't had their opportunities to win. They just need to clean some things up. And there's we saw them do it last year. They weren't in this same spot last year, but still finished strong. I have every hope that they can do the same thing again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did have a couple of viewer mail questions that touched on that we'll go ahead and just read them off since I think we already answered them, really. The first one came from Seth Shaner, and these viewer mail questions come from our friends at patreon.com/riverfrontcincy, where we just talk about all things Cincinnati sports and a lot of other stuff. We talked about stand-up comedy for a while this week. Been getting recaps from Joe's adventures in the Magical Kingdom, happiest place on earth for apparently looks like his children, at least, which is good news.
They do seem to be having fun. Yeah. Yes.
This question comes from Seth Shaner, and Seth says, while I can look back on last year and see that things began somewhat similarly, I'm left to wonder if, in the words of Yogi Berra, it's getting late early around here. Even still, the next 5 games are all winnable, so who day? Yeah, that's what we just went on. The Bengals have a really good chance. And if we can assume the defense stays solid, the run game has figured something out, then it's pretty clear what they need to improve on. And if they can figure those things out, they got a chance to go on a really, really nice stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I can see us being here this time next week, and Burrow has just had a vintage Burrow performance against a team that I don't really positive vibes about the Saints. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're well coached. But Burrow goes off, and all of a sudden we're like, okay, they're just 3-3, but they barely lost those 3. They're clicking on all cylinders, and there's going to be a lot of optimism around Cincinnati after that for the following week's game back home again against Atlanta. So, I'm really. It's not. Is it a must-win game? No, but it would be a great time to get started on a roll because that schedule just looks so good the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's not must-win, but it's getting close to it. So yeah, our Bengals are traveling to New Orleans for a 1:00 game against what looks like it might be old frenemy Andy Dalton.
That's right.
And the Saints. Jameis Winston, questionable, still might play. I don't know if it counts as a revenge game if you don't start. Do you have to actually play for it to be a revenge game? I don't know. Sound off in the comments. The Cincinnati is currently favored by 1 on the road as of recording, so you like to see that. Some quick thoughts, I guess, on this matchup. New Orleans has been pretty solid in the running game, averaging over 130 yards per game. How they handle that without DJ Reader is going to be huge. The biggest key for me here, the biggest stat that jumped out to me was that this Saints team is not afraid to give up points. They're 25th in the NFL in points per game allowed. So if Cincinnati wants to have a breakout game, this is a really good time to do it. Kind of like what you touched on there. If they're going to start clicking, let's do it now. And then the last big thing that I want to just mention here is that if you look over at the injury list, the practice reports for New Orleans, there's a lot of names on that list, a lot of big names. You mentioned quarterback Jameis Winston, wide receivers Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave. 2 of those 3 are looking unlikely to play. Marshawn Lattimore, they're saying may not play. Their best cornerback. So could be catching this New Orleans team at the right time with an opportunity to go on a run. Anything else about this game that's standing out to you?
No, I think you're right, and I think we should address Joey Gadisa's question in a moment. But I think, and his question comes back to sort of what I'm saying here, which is that maybe this week of New Orleans, with the injuries and their defense is not great. Maybe this is the point where they're sort of good for what ails you. That this is exactly the opponent Cincinnati needs. Now, just a 1-point favorite, so it's not like anyone's expecting the Bengals to come in and roll them. But I don't know. It seems like it might be a really good moment in time for the Bengals to catch them. Yeah,
I think so too. So you mentioned Joey Gadisa's question. This is a fun one. Like I said, these come from our friends at patreon.com/riverfrontcincy, where you too can join the movement. Okay, it might not be more of a movement. Actually, it isn't very much moving at all going on. Just like sitting back and texting, but you can do it. Joey Gadisa asks or says, "Hey guys, I feel like Houday are one big play away from exploding offensively and ripping off a win streak. You and me both, Joey. Who will be that big play guy to get him going?" The easy answer is Jamar Chase. But I'm not going to do that because it's too easy. You deserve more than that, dear listener or viewer. I'm going to go with our boy Hayden Hurst. Big moment for the Bengals last year was that CJ, I'm going to mispronounce his last name, which is going to be a running theme for the entirety of this podcast, is me mispronouncing last names. That CJ Uzoma catching that, however long it was, that deep ball that he just went forever on. I see Hayden Hurst being that guy. He already has the energy. He's got the celebrations. He is going to catch something, shake off a defender. Not even shake off. He's going to stiff arm him to the ground. The guy may actually go into the ground. It's like a crater. For about a 60-plus yard touchdown, off to the races. That's my prediction. Hayden Hurst.
I like it. I'll take it. You're right. Jamar Chase is the obvious answer, but my answer was going to be T. Higgins. T. Higgins comes back, hopefully healthy sooner rather than later, and there's going to be a point where it makes a T. Higgins type play, and all of a sudden, oh wow, now we have Burrow's receiving core back and all at full strength, and so then they can't spend as much time focusing on Chase, and I don't know. I feel like. If I haven't heard the injury report today. I still know he's questionable. Maybe he plays and rips off a play that sort of reminds us of what we saw in the playoffs last year, and the late stretch of the season. So I don't know. Someone know, please.
You'll get no pushback from me. I'll change the name of this show to the Riverfront T. Higgins Show if we could. We are a pro T. Higgins podcast.
Absolutely.
Well, Chad, I think that'll pretty much do it for this edition of the Riverfront Bengals Show. Guys, can you please take a second, go all mid-2000s Facebook and poke that like button, follow or subscribe button, whatever it is, to show your support for the podcast. We'd appreciate it. Chad, any parting thoughts?
No, just, I'm happy to be here. Really had a good time. Really enjoying what you and Joe are doing on a weekly basis. Keep up the great work. I love what we have going here. And I love that the family that's kind of grown up around a Reds show is also showing so much enthusiasm for the Bengals. So please follow, and we'll have Joe back next week, who's way better than I am at this thing.
I think we need him to carry us. Like, you can join anytime, and you were awesome today, and I appreciate you, but I need Joe.
I agree.
All right. A huge thank you to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week to hopefully hash out the Cincinnati Bengals win over the New Orleans Saints. For Chad Dotson, I'm Nate Dotson, and we'll talk to you soon. Houday.